Okay, made a little update here because after examining, we're taking a good look at how the chords were going. Thought this was a more interesting approach to at least this specific chord progression. The idea is going to be just doing like a four chord progression like we have done. You repeat it and then you play the first chord one last time to resolve it. And we're going to hit it in all kinds of different ways, like the same chord progression, like a ton to really get those chord shapes memorized. Because the idea is going to be when you go from one chord to the next, whenever you can, if you have a note or notes that are shared between the two chords, you keep them in the same spot. And that's usually just going from, basically like through the four chords that you do, not necessarily going from the fourth chord back to the first chord, because sometimes that can cause an issue. Because let's say the third chord you play shares notes with the fourth chord, so you want to have those notes shared, which is what's happening going from this D minor to the G chord. So the D minor and the G chord both share um, the D notes, and then going from G back to C. Well, G and C share notes, and we can see that here. They both share the G notes. So, originally, like the first one I gave you was showing these four chords repeated and then back to this. It's like, yeah, but you can go into this C over E and have that same shared note. So this is just like a longer version of like the same chord progression laid out across the low E string for all the bass notes. Uh, if we just kept climbing higher and higher, we get into some very tiny seldom used frets. So when it seemed like an okay thing, or when it felt like an okay thing, I would jump back down like to the open position on one of the chords. Um, so that happens here. It doesn't happen here because that set of chords, that progression works perfectly fine, just climbing straight up the whole time. Here, got the open position thrown in, and down here I threw in the open position for that one. So this is when you're doing this, you want to like look at like how we're sharing notes, like going from the C to the F, F over C, we keep the C note in the same place. But going from the F over C to D minor, those two notes are shared, so they stay in the same spot. And then D minor to the G, in this case G over D, the D note is shared. And because it works out well, how the progression is laid out, we can share this G note when we go into the C over E. And then we keep the C notes while we go into the F chord here. The F and A notes are kept in the same spot, going to the D minor over F. And then we keep the D note in place while we go to the G. And then we jump down there to the open position. G note is kept going from C over G to C over G. And then the C notes is kept going from C over G to the F over A. The A and F notes are kept when we go into D minor over A. And then the D note is kept going into the G over B. And then the G note is kept when we resolve back to the C. The same idea for the next set of chords. Same progression, just starting on the A string instead. Strum it, arpeggiate it however you like. Hang on, let's skip something. Here we go. Oh, I skipped the chord again. We got that one. So yeah, just work through that. Pay attention to what notes are shared. And then next time we're going to have you figure out how you're going to go from one chord to the next, focusing on keeping shared notes when possible. And I picked that chord progression because going from one chord to the next always shares notes. We will do progressions where going from one chord to the next does not always share notes. So then it's just a matter of what seems like the most efficient way or most efficient chord shape to go to next. So there we go. Just got to play through all that. Any questions come up, let me know. I'll see you next week.